Coming up today, investigations are underway after the Pentagon admits that a live sample of anthrax was mistakenly shipped to a U.S. military base in South Korea. The sample has since been safely destroyed. Korea leapfrogs Japan on a global competitiveness list, coming in at 25th. Korea received decent marks for its economic growth and efficient corporate sector. Plus, the government is under fire after a Korean man placed under watch for a suspected case of the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome skips town for China. This as the number of confirmed MERS cases jumps to 7. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Thursday, the 28th of May. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks as always for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon, the US government has revealed that a Pentagon lab in Utah accidentally sent live anthrax to an American Air Force base here in South Korea. US officials say the sample, which was supposed to be dead for use in research programs, has since been safely destroyed. Our Kim Hyun-bin starts us off.
Questions are bound to be asked about how a live sample of one of the deadliest diseases known to man was mistakenly sent from a U.S. military research facility in Utah to an American airbase in South Korea. The Pentagon said on Wednesday that live anthrax was sent to 9 U.S. states and the Ulsan Air Force Base south of Seoul. A Pentagon official stressed that all the samples have since been destroyed in accordance with appropriate protocols. The U.S. Defense Department says there's no known risk to the general public, and no personnel have shown any signs of possible exposure. It appears the samples were shipped from a proving ground in Utah on April 30th, then distributed to labs in 9 states and Korea. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention was alerted to the mix-up after a lab in Maryland discovered their package included live samples. It's thought the CDC notified Ulsan Air Base on Saturday. Live anthrax can cause severe illness and even death among people who come in contact with it, while dead anthrax samples can be used for research. A terrorist sent live samples of anthrax through the U.S. mail to government and media targets back in 2001, killing 5 people. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
And staying with the health news, Korea has confirmed 2 more cases of the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, bringing the total number of cases to 7 now, and in a seemingly preventable development that adds a new layer to this escalating situation, a suspected MERS patient boarded a plane from Korea to China on Tuesday. Han Da-eun has more.
The 2 latest patients diagnosed with the MERS virus both had close contact with the first patient. One of them is a 71-year-old man who shared the same hospital room as the first patient, and the other is a 28-year-old health professional who treated the first patient. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says the 2 were under home quarantine since the first case was confirmed last Wednesday, but had developed symptoms overnight. However, these latest cases aren't the only issues on the CDC's plate. To the shock of many, authorities have confirmed that a suspected MERS patient boarded a plane to China on Tuesday. He's the son of the 3rd patient, who was also under home quarantine. The CDC has informed the World Health Organization and Chinese health authorities and have isolated about 10 people who are known to have had any kind of contact with him. The center is also going through the list of passengers who were on the same plane as the man to place them under home quarantine if necessary. But such measures are unlikely to quell growing public anger about the way this situation has been handled. Authorities are coming under fire for incompetence, especially for their loose monitoring of dozens of suspected patients. The CDC has yet to come up with more viable solutions to keep some 60 suspected patients under tighter control. Meanwhile, a suspected patient who was taken to an isolation ward in Jeollabuk-do province on Wednesday has tested negative for the virus. 한다은, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's main rival parties have failed to come to an agreement on a number of issues. The breakdown in negotiations may thwart the passage of key pension reform bills at a full assembly session scheduled for this Thursday afternoon. The day before, they bickered late into the night, haggling over reforms to the debt-ridden pension plan for civil servants and the national pension plan for the general public. While they generally agreed on the pensions, they were still at odds over rules to implement the special law on the Seoul-ho ferry disaster. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy had demanded the inclusion of the Seoul-ho ferry ordinances as a package deal with the pension reforms. With the breakdown in negotiations, it's unlikely that 54 bills, including the public servant pension reform bill, will be passed, as the full assembly session may be cancelled. And Korea's main opposition party wants to give itself a complete overhaul ahead of the general election slated for next year and the big one, the presidential election in 2017. At the forefront of these efforts is the party's innovation chief, who has the unenviable task of uniting a party stricken by factionalism. Our Ji Myung-gil has more.
The NPDs Reform Committee, led by the former head of the Gyeonggi-do Provincial Education Office, Kim Sang-gon, has been tasked with reversing the party's tumbling popularity and resolving factional feuds.
From this moment on, we must stamp out factionalism. I urge party members to stop holding meetings that divide our party.
Kim stated that he will not allow any individuals or groups to stand in the way of the committee's activities. The former superintendent must settle in House discord in the wake of the NPD's crushing defeat in the April by-elections. The NPD's leader has thrown his support behind Kim.
Our party is not solving the daily hardships facing the Korean people. By reforming and resolving our problems, we can become a party that makes strong economic policies.
Moon added that the committee's goal was also to ensure the NPD is victorious in the 2016 general elections and the 2017 presidential election. However, the NPD's former co-leader says taking responsibility for party's poor showing in last month's by-elections must be the first step.
Taking responsibility for our defeat in the April 29th by-election is the reform we need now. It seems the spark for this reform has been lost for some reason.
Political analysts say the reforms should reflect the NPD's distinctive liberal spirit and demonstrate that the party has the strength and unity to work on behalf of the people. The Reform Committee will complete the selection of its personnel by early June. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Now, Korea is moving up in the world in terms of global competitiveness. A new survey shows the country has made some economic gains, but there's still lots of room for improvement. Our Son Jung-in has more.
Korea ranked 25th in terms of competitiveness among 61 economies surveyed this year, according to the Institute for Management Development based in Switzerland. That's one notch higher than last year and 2 spots above Japan. By category in economic performance, Korea jumped from 20th to 15th place on the back of gains in employment, domestic economic conditions, and international trade. Despite current challenges, Korea had the lowest long-term unemployment rate among countries surveyed. However, the country's management activities, consumer prices, business-related laws, and overall labor market conditions ranked low. The International Institute presented a set of tasks for Korea to focus on this year: managing household debt, creating quality jobs, and improving inter-Korean relations, all ways to make the country more competitive. The United States maintained its top spot in the survey, followed by Hong Kong and Singapore. The G20 and BRIC countries saw their rankings drop overall due to slow economic recovery and growth. China climbed one notch to 22nd place, while Japan slipped 6 places to 27th. 손정인, Arirang News.
Now, Koreans who already live in one of the most wired countries in the entire world are about to get even better internet access. Over 3,000 public Wi-Fi zones will be installed across the nation by October. That's in addition to the roughly 7,500 free Wi-Fi zones set up since 2012. The initiative is part of a joint program between local governments, telecommunications companies and agencies, as well as the Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning. By 2017, Koreans will be able to access the internet at 12,000 free Wi-Fi zones in community service centres, health facilities, traditional markets and transit terminals. President Park Geun-hye is meeting with Uzbek President Islam Karimov at her office on this Thursday, seeking ways to boost cooperative ties between the two countries. The two leaders will discuss increasing participation of Korean firms in the Central Asian countries' industrial modernization and infrastructure development projects. They will also check up on follow-up measures to agreements made during President Park's visit to Tashkent last June and talk about how they can work together to set a foundation for peaceful unification on the Korean peninsula. The presidential office in Seoul says the Uzbek leader's state visit will help the two countries upgrade their strategic partnership. Now, following trilateral nuclear talks in Seoul, the South Korean and American chief nuclear envoys are in Beijing for talks with their Chinese counterpart. The officials are expected to demand China ramp up pressure on Pyongyang. Now, Hwang Sang-hee reports.
The diplomats are making a concerted effort to jumpstart the long-stalled six-party nuclear talks. South Korean chief nuclear envoy Hwang Jung-guk and his American counterpart Sang Kim made a rare trip together, arriving in Beijing on Thursday to meet with Chinese chief nuclear envoy Woo Da-wei. The visit comes just a day after a trilateral meeting in Seoul between South Korea, the U.S. and Japan, where all agreed to put more pressure on North Korea.
Well, I think we agree that we should be exploring all opportunities to increase pressure in terms of better, stronger implementation of existing sanctions, but also looking at all other opportunities and avenues to increase pressure.
The back-to-back meetings come amid heightened tension on the peninsula, with North Korea claiming significant developments in its nuclear program and the successful test firing of a submarine-launched ballistic missile. The South Korean and American envoys are expected to debrief their Chinese counterpart on the outcome of Wednesday's trilateral talks and urge Beijing to take a stronger role in pressuring Pyongyang. Hwang stressed that Beijing is on the same page.
China opposes North Korea's nuclear development. It holds the same position with South Korea, the U.S., and Japan on not tolerating North Korea's nuclear program.
While those talks unfold in Beijing on Thursday, representatives from South Korea, the U.S., China, Japan and Russia are also gathering in Tokyo for a so-called Track 1.5 meeting. They'll discuss ways to maintain unity between the 5 members of the six-party nuclear talks. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
It has emerged that all cases of so-called collective self-defense were undertaken in a foreign territory, and this is raising fresh concerns over Japan's controversial security bills that aim to expand the scope of its military's activities. Speaking at a special parliamentary committee session on legislation for peace and security in Tokyo on Wednesday, Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida said of the 14 cases of collective self-defense that have been reported to the UN, all were exercised in foreign territory, mostly on land and a few in international waters. However, adding to the sense of confusion, on the same day, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe stated that Japan would not deploy self-defense forces to foreign countries or to their territorial waters, even if the security reform bills are enacted. Collective self-defense is the right to engage in military activities overseas if one's allies are under attack. Another Korean victim of Japan's World War II sexual enslavement has passed away. According to a group for the former sex slaves, 91-year-old Lee Hyo-soon died at a hospital in Gyeongsangnam-do province on Wednesday evening. The number of known Korean survivors now stands at 52 out of the total 238 registered Korean victims. However, historians estimate there were about 200,000 sex slaves from all over Asia, most of them believed to have been Korean. The average age of Korean survivors is now just over 88. This according to the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. Korea has been demanding Japan offer a formal apology for its wartime atrocities, as well as compensation for the victims. So far, Japan has refused. Now to the latest scandal engulfing the world's football governing body FIFA, and prosecutors in Switzerland have launched a criminal corruption probe into the 2018 and 2022 World Cup bids after 9 FIFA officials and 5 executives were arrested by Swiss police on Wednesday by the request of the US government. The 14 face charges of racketeering, conspiracy and corruption. FIFA Vice President Jeffrey Webb is among those arrested, but FIFA President Sepp Blatter was not charged. US Attorney General Loretta Lynch said all of those arrested or charged with these offences had corrupted world soccer. Now, these suspects were allegedly part of a racket which allowed them to line their own pockets with bribes worth some $150 million over a 20-year period. Lynch said the bribery and corruption extended from the sale of TV rights to voting for which countries should be awarded the right to host the World Cup. Now, if you're tuning in from Korea, you'll be well aware that it's very hot for this time of the year. The National Weather Agency says a high-pressure system off Korea's east coast is giving us these clear skies and hot and steamy weather across most of the country. A heat wave alert has been issued in Korea's Gyeonggi-do and Jeollanam-do provinces, with daytime highs expected to peak at 33 degrees Celsius in the southeastern city of Daegu. And Seoul won't feel that much cooler either, with the mercury topping out at 31 degrees Celsius today. There should be some respite over the weekend, though, with temperatures returning to seasonal norms in the mid-20s, with a chance for showers as well. And that's where we'll leave it on this Thursday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome. Have a wonderful day, and thank you as always for watching, and we do hope to see you at the same time on Friday. Until then, goodbye.